was only fun if we explained the game. You know? We didn't have anything to sort of teach you how to play, and we had like the lamest possible.
So,
blah, blah,
I came up with this great game. Give me a half an hour to explain it to you, and you'll love it.
Right, and not
just
even
give me
that
a
much.
full half an hour.
But I mean, it just, you know how it is. No one wants to just sit there and sort of read
Yeah,
things. They just want to play
books.
and do things, right?
Yeah, some game developers still don't understand that, though.
Yeah, well, we had something you could skip, and it kind of showed you what to do, but the tutorial had absolutely nothing to do with the game. It was all kind of cocked together as something that was easy to make rather than something that was interesting or that was informative. So Jim was there for the first remake of the tutorial where we tried to put it in the action itself. The way you see it now, it seems mechanically, where we could move the camera out, show you things, have little talk bubbles that come up and stuff. And but it was awful. I mean, it totally worked. If you could stomach it and get through it, it totally showed you everything you needed to in the context of doing it. But it was constantly interrupting you. It was long-winded. It was like the exact opposite of what you wanted. It took way too much time to explain what you didn't really need to have explained to you, and not enough time to just let you explore and play. So that was like a failure as a tutorial, but got us technically closer.
Fair enough.
Yeah, then we had the third remake of Bojest, and you know we did something that's very close to what you have now. We almost had it done by that point, but that first level with the kind of exciting bomb action and everything, that was actually two different levels. The first level where you couldn't lose, just taught you how to clean up, throw the bits and all that kind of stuff, and the bombs came down. And then the second level was very close to what you see now for the first level in terms of play, but it was, you know, teach you that you could lose through the river and threatening and stuff. And,
yeah, I believe I lost on the first level, and I was very surprised. I didn't think I'd be able to because it was the first level.
It is kind of sad. I'm not entirely sure what to do about that. There's a lot of people who win by accident as well. So
it's not that it was difficult. I was just terrible.
Well, I mean, we've gone through that level. We've made that level over so many times. And then when we went the second level, we purposely misdirected you so you would lose and understood that if the virus hit the data stream, you know, it was kind of
explaining was as good as losing. Anybody who goes, oh, and then they know exactly what to do. So we thought we would just sort of engineer a loss. We tried to be a little more fair.
But then the MLG gamers were like, no, I was trying to get through without any deaths.
But, you know, so we would misdirect you, and so then we were just like, and that was our second level. And a little insider thing, we just ended up taking the second level and incorporating the first level stuff into it. So all we did was ended up cutting the first level all together that we designed, and made the second the first, and added and just basically redesigned a portion of it to make it all fit, because the second level worked really well at showing all the other aspects of the game. And the first level was boring. Wasn't it? Like, people just like, this is dull, you know.
Well, the thing though is that we needed to have some way so that until you did understand generally how to move the bits around, you wouldn't get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first level that we have now is very carefully constructed in such a way that nothing does happen until you clean up enough of the virus. And since we only give you 2 bits, you have to do that right. You have to move a bit from place to place. It will not do it on its own before before anything really, like the bombs come out of the sky and we give you a bigger challenge. So we tried to make it essentially everything that the first level used to give you, and then turn into that more exciting second level right away, you know?
Yeah.
And we struggle with this now where we don't know, like, we think something's easy, other people find it punishingly hard. You know, we think we're having a good, smooth, like, interest curve, and some people are like, this is too easy, some people are like, this is way too hard. It's very hard to accommodate, you know, all play styles and stuff. We also found it's different. You're doing really well talking to us and playing. We found most people have to turn it down a notch if they're going to be interviewing and talking.
10 minutes were not going well. I kept forgetting when I asked you because I was focusing on playing. I'm not getting a bit better at it, but the first 10 minutes, I was like, what did I just ask them?
It's been a great, you know, experience for us, you know, learning how to make games, really. You know, it's so much different when somebody else is making the game and telling you what to do, you know?
As far as I saw, this was your first, like, real commercial game.
This is my first game ever. I was fresh out of college with them. Like, this was my first game ever going in, doing art and designing and leveled, like, doing the whole gambit of
So what's the first thing you designed for this?
The first thing I designed for it,
wasn't it? Electric fence?
There's fences that we don't really use that much anymore.
You were so proud of it, and then they're like, yeah, we don't really need it.
And it was mine. It was as the
Have 'em,
design of every. We use them from time to time. You'll see them in like the 10th
Level 2 has 'em.
Okay, yeah, level 2 does have them.
Okay.
We originally we're using defenses as defining borders, basically. And then as I evolved in designing levels and figuring out how to make this game in that sense and how it looks, I realized I didn't need them as much as I really did. And so, but we have those. And I mean, when I came into it, the stuff that was already designed and done, which made it easier on my part to kind of match the art style and everything like that. The Tesla coils were already built, the pumps were built, the bit makers were built, the bits were already done, the ship was already done.
Right. So it set the tone already, you know?
It set the tone already, so I already had something to go off of and something to match up with. Which made things a heck of a lot easier from starting
Didn't have to start from scratch.
Didn't have to start from scratch. It was nice to have that already, you know. And a lot of the mechanics were already done too. You know, how things get infected and stuff like that. Some of the game design part of it was already done, so it made it a lot easier on my part to then say, okay, well, it's, you know, this is a level I thought of, and being able to create them.
Well, we had done lots of different contract work doing game development for other companies that would, you know, dictate what the game was. So we put several interactives at Disney, which was a great experience. But, you know, by and large, the design entirely came from Disney. We were using their resources and stuff, but the actual game design was coming from them. And that's a very different thing, obviously, an interactive like at a museum or a Disney park or something. And we could talk about that. That's been a great time. We ported some games. You know, we worked on stuff under contract. But, you know, making your own, it's so different. And you don't think it is. You think, oh, I've learned everything I need to know. You know, I've seen people do this. This is easy. And it's just not. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that something is done just because it's obvious to you, and everything has to go through playtesting, or there's, you know, forget about it, right? And so even though we kind of knew that, and we knew everybody else would do it, years ago we would have development cycles where we'd go like months and months and months before anybody ever played it who had never seen it before. And that's just stupid, you know? You always should be working towards your next playtest, basically. And you have to put it in front of people who have never seen it to have any idea. And you need data points. You can't just have 2-3 people play it and say, oh, look, they understood it, or look, they found it too hard, therefore, you know, we need to make it a lot easier. That just doesn't work, you know? You know, we've sort of learned the hard way. School of hard knocks for a lot of what we've learned has been, Jesus, you know, people gave me this advice and I didn't really understand it until I sort of did it wrong, and I see why, you know, what I was trying to do, you know, doesn't work, basically. So
this game is a testament to how not to design a game, but then still get a game that's still good. You know what I mean?
So
the axe is always key.
you were here the entire time, right?
yes, I've been through this journey from the beginning. That is correct.
You're the lead designer?
Kind of. I'm the lead programmer.
There it is.
And I'm definitely the project leader, so I'm sort of organizing, you know, all the activities. But everyone does design. You know, there's a dirty little secret, really, which is that a lot of places, really, maybe most, I don't really know, there's no such thing as designer. You know, there's no job where you just get to design.
Yeah.
Obviously, games that have a big budget. Oh, it's
A lot of kids' dreams are getting crushed right now.
I know. Well, I mean, you hear that, you're like, oh, I want to be a game designer, and you picture how fun it would be to just sort of specify what the game will do. Good design and a good design document are very valuable, and so, you know, I'm not to say that there aren't people who are, you know, who do game design, because there's lots of people who do that, and it's not to say that there aren't some people whose job title is game design, because there are people for whom that's true, right? And, you know, for any sufficiently large budget, there'll be several designers that, you know, break up a lot of work, because for a big enough job, that's a full-time job. But you can imagine that if you have a team of, like, say, 5 people making a game, do you think there's room for somebody who's a game designer only? That's all they do? Like, does that seem realistic? Because it really isn't. There's so much work to be done. If you did only just strictly design in a team of 5 people, you would work 10 times less than everyone else. You know, all the artists, all the people putting music and assets together, level designers, people writing code, people making concept art, all that stuff. There's, you know, if you're doing all that with a team of 5 people, design is going to be something that'll be shared among everybody, right? There isn't room for a game designer. How could there be, right? Everybody sort of contributes design, or everybody who can, you know, or everyone who's allowed to. Companies are different in how they do things. But it's certainly a case that I think the average person, the average, you know, youngster who says, oh, I'd like to be a game designer, doesn't really have a fully formed idea of what the day-to-day job is like for that. And plus,
I went to college and I
being a
didn't
game
know.
designer. Yeah,
College didn't teach you anything.
right?
I
It's
learned
hard to
more
imagine.
on this than anything else.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is hard to imagine somebody who could be successfully a game designer who has only ever done that. Like, who gets that in their
You need
life?
to get into the industry somehow, and you can't do that by just being a designer.
You'd have to work under people. Yeah, the most that ever resembles like how people maybe imagine it would be if you were lucky enough to sort of study under somebody and be like an assistant to a game designer at some company for years before you got to be one. But I imagine that most people don't get to be game designers until they just get to call the shots. They worked at some studio, now they start their own studio, so now they get to call the shots, whatever, you know? Or they do it in their spare time, so they get to call the shots. You know, like most of the time when somebody is a designer, yes, they have many years of experience doing something else. Another aspect, and maybe this is my bias as a programmer, but making a game is writing software. People focus on the art, people focus on the game design and a lot of stuff, but as a product, it's a piece of software. And most, it's primarily, before anything else. So the core of making a game is programmers. And that's tough because although it's a piece of software, it's also entertainment, right? And so the performance requirements, what it takes to make a decent piece of software is now, you know, complexified by the fact that, you know, any sniveling, you know, kid can rightfully say, this sucks, and they're correct.
You can't tell
That
them
is-
they're wrong.
Yeah, nobody can. You know, I mean, like, that's the point, right? If it's a game, then it's fun. And if it's not fun, then, you know, doesn't matter how brilliant it is in every other way. And so, you know, that makes it pretty tough. But it also is tough because a lot of the people with stars in their eyes about making games, they're focused on basically everything but the software, because the software is, you know, it's kind of like the writing in a book, you know? The invisible part. You know, if it's done well, you notice the programming, right? When you notice the programming is when your frame rate sucks, when things are popping in and out, when things crash, you know?
Yeah, you don't notice the
Interrupt
writing,
you
you
and-
don't notice anything in a movie when it's all done right. It all just flows together. Yeah.
Right, and in a game you go, this is an awesome control panel, and if they did a poor job, you're like, what's this dialogue box? You know, I mean, like, you're trying to pretend it's not what it is, software, you know? And that's great.
Until recently, people didn't even really acknowledge really good frame rate. It wasn't really a
Yeah.
thing. Nobody was really like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
well, it
frame
doesn't sell
rate.
things, right? Obviously, the quality of the image sells a lot
It's
more
starting
than
to.
how fast you produce it. Yeah, it is. Luckily, it's a metric anyway, right? People are, at least, you know, it's funny that people are talking about how many P there are, you know? It's, you know, like how many scan lines, too, you know, another thing where resolution is, you know, become a keyword. Actually, this whole thing, the whole world we live in now just amazes me. Because when, you know, when I was younger, nobody knew what all this shit was about. It was arcane, how video games were made or that kind of stuff, how special effects in movies were made. It
For
was
all the listeners, Paul was born right around the time the wheel was invented.
That's
So
true.
he went, ooh, ooh, fire.
50 this past June.
He was like, they closed the curtain,
Yeah, well-
then they opened it, and the sticks were somewhere else. How did they do
It
that?
was amazing, right?
It's amazing.
Anyway, you know, it just amazes me that these days, if you say something like mocap, people know what that is, right? That's amazing. There was a TV show called Mocap. I fell out of my chair. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. I'm like, really? I wanted to call my company when I was very much younger, when I tried to start a company of my own, I wanted to call it RenderWorks. And I would tell this to people, and they'd be like, what? Chicken fat? You know, like, what are you talking about? Because the word render, even though if you said, you know, like an artist, they'd be like, oh, yeah, artists make renderings. They knew that. That was a true fact. It wasn't obscure as a word that way. But it's not what would come to mind. If you said render, people would not think graphics. Whereas these days, you know, of course you do. Right? At least for the younger generation, absolutely, you know? And if you talk about just various different things about how media and software and movies and special effects and all that kind of stuff are made, yeah, it's in the popular consciousness. I love it. I think it's just awesome, you know?
I agree. So how did you come up with plastic games?
It's, well, at first I was going to manufacture, like, adult toys. So it was first plastic toys, and I thought, you know, maybe...
Maybe I'll work on video games.
No, I know that's terrible, isn't it?
We'd be making
It
a hell
does
of a
seem
lot
like a
more
s-
money if we went into the porn
I
industry.
know. It was
You guys would be rich right now. You wouldn't even need me.
I know.
You know, we could have a bitch
Or it would be a
shifter,
very difficult,
you know?
very different interview is what
Yeah.
Illegal robosexual marriage. Okay, so, yeah, you know, who could say? Who can say?
Yeah, I think we both forgot what the question actually was.
Yeah, the question was how
Alright,
you
well,
come up
this
with
is-
plastic games.
Plastic games.
And you
Okay,
definitely got to an
Man, I
answer.
did a great job distracting you from that. I can't believe